Russia, 1917. Snow falls gently on the rooftops of Petrograd. The empire is trembling, the streets are boiling, and history is about to explode. This isn't just the story of a revolution. It's the story of how the largest empire on earth devoured itself from within, of czars and communists, breadlines and gunfire, secret plots and stolen thrones. This is the Russian Revolution, told not as a dry history lesson, but like the epic it truly was. You'll meet the doomed royal family, the exiled intellectuals who became kings, and the ruthless players who rewrote the world. So grab your coat. We're going back to the frozen chaos of 20th century Russia, where one empire fell and another darker one rose in its place. In the early 1900s, Russia was a dinosaur with diamonds, vast, glorious, and completely out of touch. Tsar Nicholas II ruled like it was still the Middle Ages. He wore the crown of the Romanovs, a dynasty 300 years old. But beneath the gold, the empire was rotting. Peasants starved on frozen fields. Soldiers died in pointless wars, and while the rich drank champagne in golden halls, the poor lined up for bread. Then came 1905, the first spark. A peaceful protest marched to the Winter Palace. They carried icons, sang hymns. But the Tsar's troops opened fire. Hundreds died. They called it Bloody Sunday. Nicholas lost the people that day. He tried to fix things, a parliament, some reforms. But it was too late. The dam had cracked. And in 1914, World War I shattered it. Russia wasn't ready for modern war. The front lines were a graveyard. Millions of soldiers were mowed down. Supplies ran out. Morale collapsed. At home, revolution simmered, and Nicholas left the capital to lead the army. He handed the government to his wife and to a mysterious monk, Rasputin, Grigory Rasputin, drunken mystic, holy man, or madman. To the Romanovs, he was a miracle worker. Their son, Alexei, had hemophilia, a bleeding disorder. Doctors failed. Rasputin prayed, and the bleeding stopped. Empress Alexandra became obsessed. She believed Rasputin had divine powers. He began influencing decisions and corrupting everything. While soldiers froze in trenches, Rasputin threw lavish parties. Ministers were fired. Laws changed on a whim. The court whispered of scandal, of a peasant monk controlling the empire. Finally, in 1916, aristocrats had enough. They invited Rasputin to dinner, poisoned his wine. He didn't die. They shot him. He still didn't die. They dumped him in a frozen river. He finally stopped breathing. But it was too late to save the empire. By 1917, Russia was boiling over. Bread riots broke out. Soldiers refused to shoot protesters. Women demanded food. Workers walked off the job. The empire cracked, and the Tsar abdicated. Just like that, 300 years of Romanov rule ended. So the Tsar was gone. Who's in charge now? Well, no one. And everyone. A provisional government was formed, made up of liberal nobles and moderates. But they didn't end the war. They didn't give land to peasants. They didn't feed the hungry. Meanwhile, in the streets, a different voice rose. The Soviets, councils of workers and soldiers, grassroots power. And within those Soviets, one party grew louder, the Bolsheviks. They had a slogan, peace, land, and bread. And their leader? A bald exile with fire in his eyes. Vladimir Lenin, smuggled back into Russia by Germany, yes, the enemy, to stir up trouble. Lenin returned like a prophet. He said the people had the power, that the provisional government was a lie, that the time had come for a real revolution. The people listened. October 1917, Petrograd. The air is electric. The Bolsheviks seize bridges, cut phone lines, surround government buildings, and then they storm the Winter Palace. Not with thousands, not with blood, but with a few dozen armed workers. The provisional government barely resists. Lenin declares a new order. The world's first communist state. Factories taken over, land given to peasants, banks seized. The world watches in shock. Some cheer, some panic. But Lenin doesn't care. He's rewriting history. The revolution wasn't over. It was just beginning. Russia plunged into civil war. The Red Army, led by Leon Trotsky, fought for the Bolsheviks. The whites, monarchists, liberals, foreign armies tried to stop them. It was chaos, train battles, village massacres, entire cities changing hands overnight. Meanwhile, the Romanovs, the deposed royal family, were held prisoner. In 1918, the Bolsheviks made a grim decision. Fearing the royals might be rescued, they executed them. Tsar Nicholas, his wife and their children, shot in a basement. The old world was buried. The Reds won. But at a price, millions dead, a nation in ruins. But Lenin had his victory. Lenin built a new world from the ashes. He created the USSR, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. But revolution eats its children. In 1924, Lenin died of a stroke, and in the shadows, another man waited, Joseph Stalin. Quiet, brutal, calculating. He outmaneuvered rivals like Trotsky, exiled them, killed them, took total control. Stalin turned Lenin's dream into an iron regime. Farms were collectivized, dissenters vanished, propaganda ruled. The hammer and sickle replaced the crown, but the cruelty remained. And thus, one of history's bloodiest revolutions ended, with a dictatorship. The czars were gone. The czars of ideology had taken their place. The Russian Revolution wasn't just a revolt. It was a rebirth, violent, visionary, and tragic. It changed the 20th century. It inspired revolutions. It sparked Cold Wars. It shaped a world of fear and power. And it began with bread. From czars to comrades, from Rasputin to Red October, the empire that once ruled 1/6 of the earth fell not from invasion, but from within. And in the ashes, a new empire rose. History doesn't end. It reinvents itself. This was the Russian Revolution, an empire that ate itself and fed a fire that burned for a century.